Welcome. This is Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap podcast, and I'm just delighted that you're here. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host, and my vision for this show is to create resources for women to navigate their career and lives, those challenges that we all face from time to time, to navigate all of those more easily, maybe more gracefully, and to know that they are not alone. Each weekly conversation is intended to inspire women worldwide to become more confident, resilient, and brave in their lives and in their careers. So, if something resonates with you as you're listening today, check out the show notes below for all of the ways to connect with my guest and me. So, imagine this. You're sitting for hours and need to stay focused. There are lots of distractions. A deadline is looming. And the last thing you're thinking about is self care because you've got a job to do. Sound familiar? My guest helps people just like you and me. And the people she helps, are cooped up in the cab of an 18-wheeler as a long haul trucker every single day. For these women and men, figuring out how to stay healthy is a real challenge. So I thought I'd introduce you to Hope Zvara because she can help long haul, and if she can help long haul truckers, her tips will help hard-working women like us as well. And we might be struggling with finding time and space to fit self-care into our busy days. So Hope is CEO of Mother Trucker Yoga. I say that slowly, intentionally. It's a company devoted to improving truck drivers' fitness and wellness standards. Hope has been featured in Yahoo News, Forbes, and PBS, and is a regular guest on SiriusXM Radio. Hope shares her easily implementable strategies in her book, Trucking Yoga, Simple Fitness for the Long Haul. She helps people go from unhealthy and out of options to feeling good again while living on the road. So she has to be able to help us too. Those strategies that she teaches are going to be helpful for us to learn as well. And that's why I want to introduce you to Hope. Hello, Hope. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here today. Happy International Women's Day.
Yes, indeed. It is today, this whole Women's History Month that we're in. And today is International Women's Day. I love that you're here. I love your energy, and I love that you're here today. I also love backstory. So I would love for you to share a little bit about your backstory and how you got to where you are doing what you
Absolutely.
do.
Well, I did not get my start in trucking. And I really got my start in the yoga world. And rather, yoga found me. I didn't find yoga. I was a teenager and working as a lifeguard at the time and just really kind of lost. And someone looked at me at work one day and said, "You look like someone that would practice yoga." She didn't know it, but I was struggling with anxiety and depression and a slew of addictions, one of them being an eating disorder. And something in me that day when she suggested yoga just tripped. And I went home and I looked for a yoga class. And the next thing I know is I'm half the age of all the women in this class. But that Wednesday night yoga class became my weekly ritual of second chances. Walking out the door of that first yoga class and looking back into the room with my yoga mat tucked under my arm, for the first time in as long as I could remember, my mind was clear. I was calm. I wasn't thinking all of those overwhelming thoughts that so many of the listeners have also felt, maybe even right now, like, oh, you're not good enough, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're ugly, you're fat, you're never going to be able to do anything right, you're a loser, whatever it is, constantly flooding my mind, were gone. And eventually that Wednesday night yoga class became a pathway for me. And I became a yoga teacher. And then I opened a yoga studio for people just like me. I was looking for a community, so I just created one. And then I opened a yoga teacher training school here in Wisconsin. But I was always looking for something more. It was like that wasn't where I belonged. Although I was able to heal and get into recovery, and I'm so grateful for that community, I didn't feel like that was where I was going to make the most impact in my life. And 5 years ago, trucking just fell into my lap. I was at a local business mixer in my small hometown with my husband, and I met a guy, kind of sounds like a pickup line, but I'm married. And I start talking to him. I'm trying to pitch him corporate yoga because it's partly what I did at the time. And he looks at me and says, "Do you have anything for truck drivers?" Like in the cab of the truck. I think I'm funny sometimes. And I threw up my hands and I said, "Mother trucker yoga," just trying to get a rise out of this guy. And he looks at me and says, "That's brilliant. Do you want to go into business together?" We shook on it. He called me the next morning. 4 months later, we built a business from scratch. We kind of meaning me. And a year later, I bought him out of the business because I realized that this was my path. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I belong. I had never felt that before in my life. And for the last 5 years, I've helped thousands of truck drivers change lanes in their health and fitness with small, simple changes. The same small, simple changes that I used to get myself into recovery and that I have used with thousands of men and women over the last 20 years, taking them out of pain, out of dysfunction, out of clutter, out of stress, and into a space where they can really feel like they can live their best life. And that's why I'm here today.
That's an amazing story, and I love that story. It is it's an empowering story, and I love that a lot of these things fell into your lap when you were ready for them.
Isn't that the
That's how the
truth? Where
universe works, right?
when you're open and
Yeah,
you're on the right path, things just happen. And I've
yeah,
been in that space where I'm forcing it and it feels hard and it feels like,
right.
why is this not working? And that timing thing is so essential.
Yeah, yeah. And to be, yeah, you're right, be open for it. Yeah. So let's talk about what you learned from teaching yoga all those years.
I learned a lot of things. One, I feel like teaching something is such a great mirror for you for a couple of reasons. One, it forced me to also get right with myself. So I could memorize poses till I'm blue in the face. But what teaching taught me was I knew poses, not people. So it kind of opened a pathway for me to deep dive into learning more about the body and learning more about the mind and how it is and what it is that we need as people, as humans. So that was one part of it. But teaching yoga and health and fitness for all those years also taught me how to use my voice. It taught me how to communicate and connect with people, which as a leader and as a teacher and a coach now, I feel like one of the things I have that makes me very different from other people is the yoga aspect really showed me the art of connection and communication. My ability to read people, feel people, and see the subtleties and the stuff between the lines that we may not always be accustomed to. Because on the yoga mat, yoga forces you to slow down. It forces you to be present, to feel the good, bad, and the ugly, and recognize that you can move through anything. Which I think that's why, for me, as someone that's been in recovery now for several years, this is why I'm in recovery at the capacity that I am, not just kind of functioning, not on medication, not on all these other things where it's like I'm kind of there. I'm fully there. And one of the biggest reasons is because yoga showed me all of those tiny little things that I needed to get right with in order to step into a life for me personally worth living. I didn't just want to function in this world, I wanted to thrive. And that's one thing I've seen so many women and men want, but not know how to put their finger on. It's like you can live your best life, but you also have to do the work. You have to show up. You have to be willing to go through the discomfort. And in a world of instant gratification, and if we don't like something, we just hit the delete button, it doesn't really foster an environment for us to have to move through the discomfort that, in my mind, quite frankly, is necessary to find the happiness that we're searching for. And so this is one thing that I have really learned and am very adamant and passionate about is we need to figure out where we are right now. We need to learn and collect tools and create strategies how to move through the things that we don't like so much. Create an aerial view and go, okay, what am I learning? What are my habits? What are my behaviors? I learned a lot about my stuff, a lot that I didn't like, that I didn't want to see, that I was embarrassed about, that I was frustrated with because I was like, whoa, that's me. But then we have this amazing information that we get to decide, what am I going to do with it? Because no one can fix you. We're all adults. Everyone listening here, I'm assuming, is an adult and probably has been for many years. You get to fix you. And that is one of the most empowering awarenesses and aha moments that we can all have as humans, is recognizing that we really do hold the power to create whatever life that we want.
And I love that's so much of what you've said. All of it's great stuff, and I totally agree. And I think it starts with having that self-awareness that we have, as you just said, the power to make the changes that will make us feel better, be better, and do better, right?
Absolutely. And recognizing that you can start that at any time. Having worked
Yeah.
with thousands of people over the last 20 years, there's this mindset that constantly comes up where it's like, oh, but I first need to get in shape before I come to yoga. Oh, but first I need to like figure this out before I can start taking care of myself. I'm here to tell you all, those are lies. Those are lies that you have taken on probably from someone else along the way, and you have taken them on as beliefs, as
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
And they're not. And the second you make that shift, the whole world opens up to you.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. So let's talk about what our listeners can learn from what you teach the women and men of trucking about health and fitness that could apply to them.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, first of all, the cab of your truck is your cubicle. I'm sitting at my desk right now. Like, it's like I'm in a cab of the truck, confined spaces for so many people that work in corporate or work from home, wherever it is. Like, we're limited in space. And even if we're not, we tend to hang out in a small, confined area, whether we recognize it or not, because like that's where all our stuff is. And I don't know about you all, but I work at a computer a lot in order to connect with all of my drivers, doing things just like this. And I'm sitting a lot. Just like drivers, I'm stuck behind a computer where they're stuck behind a steering wheel. And so, trying to make sure, first things first, you have tools within an arm's reach that you can use to help improve your health and wellness. One of the things I learned from teaching yoga and fitness was so many people were putting fitness and health in a box. And what I mean by that is I only work out from 5 to 6 p.m. And if it's 6:01, well, I guess I missed my workout time. I'm just going to go home and do something different. Or unless I have my yoga clothes on, unless I'm at the yoga studio, unless I'm at the gym, unless there's a trail nearby, I can't work out. I can't do healthy things. Oh, I'm traveling. I can't eat healthy. So now I'm just going to go completely the opposite. And so when we have these tools nearby, I'm sitting at my desk right now, and next to me, I have a resistance band. I have a hand weight. I have a yoga strap. I have everything because I recognize that when I don't have these things accessible, although I have a very cute storage unit right over on the other side of my desk to store this stuff, I never use it. And the same is true for drivers. Having that stuff right next to their driver's seat so they can drive and they can do some bicep curls. Or while they're driving, they can roll their shoulders. They can do a little twist. These are all things that I want to open, not just driver's eyes, but really anybody that has a body, has a pulse, and wants to live a healthy, happy life. That fitness is something you integrate into your day throughout the day. It's not something that you label and put in a closet and only pull out at a particular time. I have worked with lots of different men and women over the years. And one of the things I've recognized is that I've worked with triathletes, with ultra marathoners. But here's the funny thing: when they're not running, they're not doing anything. And so this idea of being healthy is only associated with them running miles. And the same is true for gym or yoga. What about the other 23 hours a day? What about the other 18 hours a
Right.
day? So for
Right.
those of you listening, in your space, what do you need to bring nearby so that when you see it, it's almost like a good guilt trip, like, oh, I better use that. And the other thing to that is set a timer on your phone. I actually have a set timer every half an hour, which I'm muted right now, in a different ringtone than my normal alarm. So when I hear that, that's my reminder that if I haven't moved, I need to stand up. I need to, do my arms overhead. I need to touch my toes. I need to do, a minute's worth of bicep curls. All of that counts, but all of that adds up over time.
Okay, so let's talk about that very specifically. So what's your practice? How long do you work? When do you set the timer for? For how long? And then what do you do?
Absolutely. So I try to go to the gym, 1 or 2 times a week. I try to have, a legitimate yoga practice. That doesn't always happen because my schedule is always changing and I travel. But what I do try to do is usually it starts about 9 a.m. because that's when I know typically I'm in my office, because sometimes my mornings are a little different with my kids. And so at 9 o'clock, when I get in front of my desk, I get everything set up. I make sure all of my stuff that I want to use for the day, a resistance band, a weight. Sometimes I wear ankle weights when I'm standing at my desk, and I'll just walk in place and have those weights on my ankles. And then every half hour, so that means 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, to 11 o'clock, and so on until 3. And the reason why it stops at 3 is that's when my kids get home from school. And so then we're doing stuff together. We're walking the dog. I try to be active with them as well because they've been sitting all day. And I'm trying to also show them what lifestyle health and fitness looks like. But every half an hour, that alarm goes off. And it's a different alarm than my wake up alarm or my alarm for an appointment. And the reason why that's so important is because you want that sound to associate with something different than an appointment or something different than, oh, I got to get out of bed. And so pick a sound. You can usually download ringtones that makes you feel good. That's like, oh, okay. So that your brain, kind of like Pavlov's dog, if you remember that from, long time in high school, learning about those studies, that your brain starts associating that sound with movement. So then you hear that and you automatically want to do that. I would suggest to everybody listening, you don't need to know a million different exercises, but maybe write down on a little post-it note. I love post-it notes. I tell my drivers to use these all the time, and put it on your computer. And maybe 5 exercises. Maybe one of them is you're going to do a minute of air squats. That's just you squatting down and coming back up when that ringer goes off. Or maybe it's grabbing your hand weights and doing tricep extensions and bicep curls for a minute. Maybe that's doing a plank off of your chair. You don't need a workout clothes. You don't need a fancy space, but you do need some sort of catalog, some type of like default to list to go to, so that your mind doesn't go, I don't know what to do, so I'm just not going to do anything.
Yeah,
And
I love
guess
that.
what? YouTube is free. You can find lots of stuff there.
Absolutely. So that ringtone is like a pattern interrupt for you.
Yes.
That takes you out of whatever the task is you're doing, to get you up out of your chair and to do something. And if I'm hearing you correctly, it's just do something for 1 minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Just do something for 1 minute.
One
I'm in
minute
the
in every 30.
Yep, 1 minute every 30, because think about it. If you work for 6 hours,
Yeah.
you have moved now for almost 10 minutes. That you might not think that's a lot, but guess what? You were doing goose egg before. and you're going to feel better. And here's the other thing that I've recognized, because when we physically move, we boost serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and neurotransmitters in our brain, and oxygen, all essential for us to feel good. And if you're doing that throughout the day, at the end of your workday, you're going to feel good. And guess what we do when we feel good? We eat healthier, we make better choices, we're kinder. We oftentimes will go and exercise, go for a walk, go to the gym, go do something. And that's a cycle that I want everyone to get caught in. I don't believe in this world we have a mental health crisis. I don't. What I believe we have is a movement crisis. We don't move enough. Therefore, mentally, we are not feeling our best. And so what if movement is really the medicine that we're missing?
That's a very interesting perspective, Hope. Really interesting. I'm so glad you said that. I think you I don't know that I agree that we don't have a mental health crisis in this country. But I absolutely believe that we do have a movement. I am guilty of that myself. I'm going to try this approach to have a ringtone that interrupts me every half hour. I'm not sure that's going to work well for me because I work with clients for an hour at a time. So I'm not going to
Then
take
do
a
it every
break
60 minutes.
in the
My
in
point with that is find something that works for
but
you.
that's right. That's the
But you need to
that's the
find
key.
something that makes you and forces you to say, hey, you need to do this. And maybe it's not every half an hour, maybe every day at 10 and noon. And then right before your kids get
Right.
home or dinner time, you're going to do 5 minutes.
So
But
here's
the
the
point
thing.
is
That's
integrate.
right. So you adjust it so that it works for you. And one of the things that I'm thinking about is because I am a time blocker. That's how I get certain things done. I block time for my clients. I block time to get work done on my business. I block time for my family. I block time for appointments other than my clients. I'm a time blocker. So I could block 5 minutes or 15 minutes in my, a couple of times in my daily schedule that would work better for me than every 30 minutes for 1 minute. That probably wouldn't work so well for me on most days. But that's the whole key, I think, that of what you're saying
Yes.
is figure out what works for you so that you can move more than you're moving now and have
Absolutely.
those tools. So let's talk about those tools. So you've mentioned little hand weights and straps. What other tools would you suggest we have handy?
I'm a big believer, and I never want needing things to be a barrier to someone taking their health back. And so if you don't have any equipment, honestly, a lot of times it's just using your body weight. A chair to do plank, standing up and doing air squats, side bends, arm circles, turn on music and just dance. If you love to dance, I have some clients that just love dancing. And so they just turn on their phone and pop in their earbuds and they just get out of their truck and they just dance, or they dance right in their truck and they just get their body moving. The name of the game is you need movement. Movement is medicine. Movement is healing. People always ask me, Hope, how did you get in recovery and stay in recovery? And how are you able to be at a place that you're at right now, mentally, physically, emotionally? And it's because of movement. It's because I was moving and breathing and feeling. And when we're not doing those things, we're not processing emotion. We're not filling our body with all the good chemicals that should be functioning and should be happening. We're not digesting. And there's nothing worse than feeling like constipated, feeling bloated, feeling uncomfortable. That physical feeling affects us mentally and emotionally. And this is where I go back to movement. We're in a movement crisis in our world right now, especially in America. We don't move enough. And we as humans are meant to move. We're not lions. We're not meant to sleep for 24 hours and then only move for 60 minutes. We're meant to move throughout the
Right.
day. And so what you need is really first and foremost a willing mind to commit to something. And really the second thing is get a Post-it note. Okay. I tell my
Yeah.
drivers to do this. I actually have one right on my screen. It's my reminder for posture. And I want you to stick this on your computer screen to remind you, pick 3 exercises that you know how to do. Plank, jumping jack, squat, I don't care what they are. Doesn't matter. Don't overcomplicate this. And I want you to write them on your Post-it note. And I want you to stick that on your computer or wherever it is you can see it. It has to be in your line of sight. That's the key.
Right.
Phones are great, but you can't see the stuff that you're writing about. So that when you see that, it reminds your mind to say, you need to do that. You need to do these. And then you can go through your day. If you're going to block 2 time blocks, then have 2 exercises or have 3 exercises. And you
Mhm.
can check those off as you go. We also are tricking our mind. If you feel like you're never accomplishing anything, you've accomplished 3 things guaranteed every single day. And that's a great mental momentum builder as well. So
Right.
don't worry about equipment. Use your body weight to start. But honestly, some of my favorite things are simple hand weights. Don't have hand weights, use soup cans. Those work great too. A resistance band is great. You can pull on that. You can squat with that. You can do lots of stuff that costs you $10 at Walmart. Those are great tools to get started.
That's great. I love that and I'm sure I was thinking about a rubber band, something,
Yep.
anything, a big rubber band, would, yeah. It's, doing resistance stuff if you don't have all the tools. And there are probably a lot of things that we have around our home. If we're not a fitness buff and don't have all of that equipment yet, that we can use just to get into the practice of moving more and doing
Yes.
things that are building our health and building the mindset that when we do this, we feel better. Therefore, and there's that connection, right? Therefore, we want to do it more often so that we feel better more often.
It's a good loop to be in.
Yeah.
When we feel good, we make good choices. When we make good choices, we feel good about those choices. So we want to make more. Again, the movement and the mental are so connected that if you're struggling with mental health on any level, you feel depressed or anxious or stressed all the time, even if you're not sleeping, I have found in my own life, but also in many of my clients, the reason why you're not sleeping well at night, one of the reasons can very well be sleep is like refilling your cup. And if you haven't emptied any of the water out of your cup throughout the day because you haven't exhausted yourself, mentally you might be, but physically not, you're not going to be able to sleep. Your body's restless then. Your body is not to the point where it can relax and it can restore as it's supposed to, as it's designed to do in that portion of your day. And so movement can be a great way to empty that cup so that you can refill it when you're sleeping at night. And so that's the first thing that I'm always thinking to myself if I have a restless night. What has my movement been like for the last few days? And if I haven't been exercising, if I haven't been moving, that's the very first thing I do the next day. And what do you know? I'm sleeping better that next night.
Good points. Very good points. I appreciate that you shared all of those with us. I'd love to know what your biggest takeaway, looking back at your journey, all that you've learned, what's your biggest takeaway?
I think my biggest takeaway in my life over the last 20 years has been never give up.
Hmm.
If you have a goal, any type of goal, if you have, like me, where you want to lead other people and make a big impact, never give up. It's hard. You're going to come up against obstacles. If you're trying to improve your health, it's going to be hard. You're going to be facing obstacles. Things aren't going to go as planned. You're going to have to figure it out as you go. Things are going to change. If you're trying to switch careers and you're not exactly sure how to go about it, when to take the leap, where to go from here, how to ask for a pay raise, whatever it is, like you're going to come up against obstacles. But every single time I have come up against an obstacle and I have made the decision in that moment to not quit and keep pushing forward, the outcome has always been better than staying in that moment where I had to make that decision. Equally as much, every single time I have been faced with a problem and I decided to keep going, doesn't matter what area of life, what I've discovered is that challenge that I was able to figure out has always played some type of a role in something that was to come. And it could be a month from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, where I was like, why did I go through that? Why did that happen? And I was able to move through it. It has always played a role in the bigger picture. And so, for everybody listening, if you're trying to improve your health and you're struggling right now, know that life is trying to set you up for success later on. If you're trying to do another thing in your personal or professional life and it's hard, I want to encourage you to keep going, never give up, and never lose hope.
Yeah. No pun intended, Hope.
Exactly. I got to play that in there once in a while.
Yeah, I had to get that in, huh? I love that. It is the kind of thing that it's kind of message everyone needs to hear, because regardless of what it is you're trying to do, yeah, those bumps in the road uh, slow us down, sometimes stop us in our tracks, and feeling like there's a good reason to keep going, and having that reason is having it's your why. So why are you doing what you're doing? Knowing what that is will keep you going. And I
Yes.
love that you said, just little steps, small steps will keep the progress, the momentum going. And you'll look back and see how far you've come and be amazed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a 1% rule where every day, if I just try to be 1% better, at the end of
Yeah.
the year, I am 365% better than where I was on January 1. Like, when you look at the big picture, that's amazing. And when you look at New Year's resolutions where less than 8% after January 31st, commit, I think the reason being is we're trying to move a huge, heavy load of stuff, completely change our whole life, change every aspect of our health, or incorporate every aspect of fitness. Like, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week for an
Right.
hour every day. That's not realistic, but
Right.
1%, one move, 1 minute, I can
Yeah.
commit to that.
1 minute. Yeah. That's a great correlation back to your idea of, every 30 minutes do 1 minute of something that is movement, that is healthy. Um, it doesn't take much. We all just have to commit to doing those small acts. I'm thinking about myself here. I am just so guilty of this. I get wrapped up in my day, and I don't, yeah, so we have to do that pattern interrupt tone, something that will stop us and make us think,
Mhm.
this is my time to, pick up that weight or pick up that strap or do, walking in place or go walk the dog, whatever that is. Yeah, you've raised my consciousness level, Hope, considerably,
I
and
love it.
I'm going to really think hard about how can I incorporate this into my daily living so that I can be better, 1% better every day, even if it's 1% better, half a percent better. Can you imagine? Even that is a huge uh, change for the better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and I'm a big believer in foundation building. And, I think sometimes we hear suggestions like this and it seems almost ridiculous. But here's the opposite. For many of you listening, and I was that person, you're not doing anything right now. So this is a drastic improvement. This is like 100% improvement.
Yeah.
And if this works, wow, imagine how you've just completely rewritten the narrative on what health and wellness and fitness looks like for you. And if I can do it, I always tell people, if I can do it, somebody that not one, not two, but three doctors written off and said, best case scenario, you'll learn to function on medication and kind of hope for the best. And I decided that that would not be my story. And it hasn't been, and it isn't, and it will never be. Anybody can do it. And so let's start small to build momentum, to build a foundation to sit on. And you will look back a week, a month, a year from now and go, wow, look at how far I've come.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really the important piece here. Committing to yourself in very small doses so that you can see the progress you've made, which will be the momentum you need to keep going because
Yes.
you feel better. Yeah. All right. So, Hope, we end every episode with my guest sharing her best tips, biggest takeaways that our audience can implement right away. You've left us with many of them throughout this conversation, but let's talk about your three best.
I think number one is finding 1 to 3 movements that you can do every single day throughout the day in a way that works for you, but you got to commit. Number 2 is recognizing the conversation in your head. And so every morning when I wake up, before I get out of bed, before I put my feet on the floor, I have a conversation in my head telling myself, today is going to be a great day. Today, I'm going to take care of myself. Today, I'm going to move my body. Today, I matter. And I get up and I put my feet on the floor. I'm very conscious of that transition. And I find that I set myself up for success that much more throughout the day. And
Yeah.
the third tip
Before
or
you
the
get
third
to the third
strategy.
one, let me interrupt here because the one you just mentioned is so critical. You went through the litany of voices you had in your head earlier in our conversation. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, all of that stuff. Those are so often the voices we hear in our heads. And what you're suggesting here is that when you get up in the morning, you choose
Mhm.
what the voices are that you want to hear so that they support you instead of sabotage you. I love that
100%.
you said that. That is so important.
As an addict, I recognized I had 2 voices in my head, my healthy mind and my addiction mind, and the only way to quiet my addiction mind was to make my healthy mind louder. And number
Yeah.
3 is the end of the day. When you lay down in bed at night, I make it a point. I put one hand on my chest, one hand on my belly so I can feel my heart and feel my abdomen, feel myself breathing, energetically connect, but also physically. And I close my eyes and I take some deep breaths to calm my body down, especially if I had a stressful day. I take some really deep breaths before I go to sleep. But before I fall asleep, and I want you all to do this tonight, I visualize the life that I want to be living. But here's the key, it's not just about visualization. I feel the feelings associated with what it is I'm visualizing. I bring myself there like it's happening because our brain can't tell the difference between what's real and what's fake. And so when we emotionally feel something, it's like it's happening. And every single night, it takes me 30 seconds, not very long at all. I close my eyes, I visualize wherever it is or whatever it is I'm trying to achieve or what I want. If it's, our new house and our kitchen and we're laughing with family and friends, or I'm on stage at a conference, whatever it is. But I put myself there physically, mentally, and emotionally, and I feel the feelings. I hear the crowd. I visualize the scene, every conversation like I'm there. So I tell my brain, this is always already real. This is already happening. I change my mental and emotional blocks and change them into really like powerhouses to be like, I'm already there. Because then guess what? I wake up the next day and I'm telling myself those things and I'm able to hit the ground running and I'm able to achieve whatever it is I put my mind to. For all of you listening out there, your future is waiting for you to step into it. All you have to do is to choose to take that first step.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that you said visualization isn't the whole thing because that's such an important piece of the stepping into what it is you want and feeling it as though it's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's such an important piece. A lot of people practice meditation, visualization, and they skip that part. And that's the connective tissue.
Yes.
That's what really makes it work. And that's what makes us that's what motivates us, right? That's what I want. And I can feel it in my bones. I can taste it. That's what I want. When you feel that, that's when you just take actions to make it happen. And then the universe responds.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Great tips. Hope, I love your energy. I love that you work with a population of people who are stuck, right? They are stuck behind a wheel, and you have helped them find ways to be healthier and to make the best of the space and the time they have. And that so much of that can apply to those of us who are in a cubicle or in a home office like mine, which is it's not a bad space, it's pretty good size space, but I am really confined by the computer screens in front of me and my keyboard and my desk to the left. I'm in a small space. And I'm thinking about how do I make this work better for me? And you've given me some great ideas, and I hope that it will just get other people thinking too.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your tips. I love that.
Thank you. It's been fantastic.
Great. And I know that people are going to want to get in touch with you. So help us know the very best way to do that.
Absolutely. You can check out our website at mothertruckeryoga.com. That's mothertruckeryoga.com. We have lots of free resources on our site available to people just like you.
That's fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you again, Hope. I really appreciate your being here and sharing your ideas with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's my pleasure. And for everyone else watching and listening, I want to thank you and I appreciate you for being a part of our community. So if this episode rang a bell with you, please subscribe and leave a comment or click a star. Let us know what you're thinking and feeling about this episode. And as I said at the top of the show, I love creating and sharing resources for women. Plus, as a career and life coach, I work with women to help them navigate challenging times more quickly and gracefully. So, if something resonates with you and you'd like to get a fresh perspective, let's have a chat. Let's reach out. Let's talk about it. The links to connect with Hope and me are in the show notes below. And I invite you to continue the conversation in my private Facebook group, The Career Transition Roadmap. And the link for that is below as well. So let's meet again here next Wednesday, as always, because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.